Undaunted Spastasma!
And I'm Blair O'Rama, a.k.a. Lobo Esquire.
We are
The Hairless
Meatballs! And this is Bill and Ted's band practice
Extravaganza!
Excellent! For our first most triumphant song,
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
1, 2, 3, 4!
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the first of the trilogy of Bill and Ted movies.
Yeah. Wow, I haven't seen this in a long time.
Yeah, been a long time for me as well. I've actually seen the second one a little more recently, but this one, I don't know, 20, 30 years probably.
Yeah, a lot more plot holes than I remember.
But I still remember most of the movie. Once you start watching it, it's been 20 years and you still remember a lot of it.
Yeah, it all comes back to you. I still found it to be very funny. I was very entertained. A lot of the jokes that, when you're watching a comedy that's 30 years old and you know the joke is coming, often you don't laugh even if it's a funny joke. I was still laughing out loud at a lot of this. I was 13 when I saw it. I remember taking my friends to see this in the movie theater on my 13th birthday. So
Yeah. And after that, how many times did all of our friends say, dude?
Yep. Excellent.
Dude.
Party on.
Whoa, dude.
Well, that's kind of the misconception about this movie. A lot of people say like it created some kind of like Southern California surfer stoner era. They're not surfers or stoners.
No.
They're just kind of, and they're not geeks either. That's what they're just kind of like floaters in high school. Like they're not picked on, but they're not looked up to.
They're band guys. I mean, they fit the role they're supposed to be in, which is guys who are starting a band, a garage band in high school. I'm glad that they're not officially stoners, because it does seem like that would have been the easy route to give an explanation for why they're kind of stupid or whatever, or absent-minded. Oh, we'll just make them stoners.
Yeah.
But also, I think in the 80s, certain films, especially one with a PG or PG-13 rating that it had, couldn't really make them a stoner. The casting in this, it's so perfect. I mean, obviously, it's the kind of thing where you can't picture anyone else playing the role anymore, but I just love them. This rewatch of this movie right now, it was just the chemistry between those two guys worked so well.
It's such a happy movie.
It is.
Yeah.
And is it
Such a
just
happy
me or
movie.
does like Keanu Reeves, I love him today. Everybody kind of loves him because he just seems like a great guy off camera.
yeah.
But like he has so much energy when he plays these. Even in Parenthood, he plays kind of a similar guy.
Yeah.
I told him that's what little dudes do.
I don't know. I've heard things about this third one where it just doesn't look like he has that in him anymore to go, hey! You know, like he's just more like.
Well, he hasn't had to play comedy at all. He's gone straight serious action. So.
Yeah, and that's it. And I love Alex Winter as like a director, and I love the stuff that he created in the '90s. He made his own film that has a whole crazy story to it. He created the Idiot Box, which was something on MTV, which is a sketch comedy, really weird thing. And the second one takes a lot. Well, Idiot Box came later, but a lot of like the angles and stuff like that and some of the close-ups in the second movie are all kind of like part of how that show worked.
I think this movie still looks good. Like, I'm actually impressed with how it looks. It's for what it is, for an 80s comedy. Like, it's not trying to be high art, but I think it has a great look. The effects that are used throughout it, the way
Sparingly,
the way they do
The movie's
work
pretty
the time
timeless.
frames.
Once you see the phone booth do what it does, they don't really show you it again. It's implied over, you'll see flashes of light from another angle. They only really show it to you in its full going down and going up like one time.
Because they had to pay somebody like
and
10
then
grand
they just
to do
use
it.
a smoke effect or a flash effect, But that's fine because
That's smart filmmaking.
It is because you already. That's what I'm saying because
Don't
you already
show the
know,
shark.
You already know what it does.
Yeah.
So in your imagination, it's happening every time because you've seen it.
But the one scene where they're both there talking to themselves, that was great.
That was very good. You couldn't see
in front of
any
Circle
like
K.
overlay or compositing or anything on that.
Very few time travel movies really make sense if you try and figure out how it should all work. But it's like you pointed out, kind of like in the Austin Powers films and stuff like that, especially Austin Powers 2 that
Laziness
deals.
is the charm.
Yeah, the laziness is the charm.
And you don't really care that there's like 9 people in the phone booth or 10 people in the phone booth. You're like, whatever.
They give you one optic of like the phone booth now is turned sideways and they're all kind of riding it like a train car. But then you're like, well, how did they land? It doesn't matter.
Nope, it doesn't matter.
I always remembered how great the Beethoven guy was, and the Genghis Khan guy.
Genghis
seen
Khan,
in
so
Die Hard
good.
and fucking Big Trouble in Little China. Millions, tons of 80s
Genghis
movies.
Khan rocks. Joan of Arc is so good.
Yeah, she's cute.
She's really, really
I think
good.
they all do a great job except Billy the Kid. You kind of pointed out that Billy the Kid's the weakest of the bunch.
He's just terrible.
That just doesn't seem
they
like
didn't
the
give
Billy
him
the
anything
Kid.
to do, but
No.
like he didn't even try to act.
And I like that they actually keep certain characters like Socrates and Sigmund Freud that they don't speak English. Like it would just be easy for them to, oh, well, we need them to communicate with our heroes or say a couple lines that Napoleon's kind of the
Napoleon
standout.
too,
I mean,
yeah.
He might be
is-
the standout of the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like of the whole
I mean,
movie.
Bill and Ted are the standout of the movie.
I don't know,
obviously.
man.
I love them.
Bill and Ted didn't do anything as funny as
Yeah.
the Waterloo scene.
Oh,
He's like,
I don't know.
no, my beer.
As ludicrous as all the situations are of like leaving all these historical figures in a mall, most of them don't speak English. One of them's deaf. 2 or 3 of them are rapists, murdering, conquer, genocide committing. But it all like it's like you said, it's so charming.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun and like joyful. It's like you're not supposed to think of that stuff, and I didn't know that shit when I was 12. Yeah.
I think one of the reasons I always really loved this movie was I liked history. That was one of my favorite classes in school.
Yeah.
And so this was just much like them. Like that's how I needed to kind of learn history. Like give me something visual, watch a movie, give me something that's more entertaining than an old textbook. And so I kind of really love the story from connecting with it as like, wow, that's how I'd love to learn every subject.
That reminded me of like the difference between high school and college for me. The reason I didn't do poorly in high school, but I wasn't engaged because the textbooks were written so poorly and so general. And then when I got into college, you get more immersed into the texts. Like they're better texts, they're more honest about what things were going on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what like going to an old Western town and walking into a saloon and getting into a fight and then running out is going to teach me.
But you might remember what year it was and what like. who
Well,
was
that's
in there.
basically all they do in their report. It's
Yeah.
like, this person came from 1852. Take it away.
I think the movie actually has a good flow, nice pacing.
Yeah.
I do too,
We
very much.
pointed out there's some time issues where once you've gotten back to the present, there's 2 hours before their review or their report is due. Yet they do a ton of things across town. They're going to the mall. They're going to the water park. They're going to the police station. They're doing this. They somehow set up a whole set with platforms.
Well, they
and
have
lighting
lighting technicians and
musical
pilot.
cues and everything.
And what the hell is going on with this like history report? Why do they have a whole arena for it? And it looks like there's like 80 classes in there at once. Is the whole school in there for a history report? The audition, both of them look so different. So different. So much younger in the audition video. Then getting filmed and getting shelved and then finally coming out in like late 88 or early 89, whenever it was. Like they were, I mean, fuck, they were already like prepping Keanu Reeves to become a fucking action star. by the
Yeah,
time
he was already John Wick.
Yeah, and
Jr.,
then all of a sudden they're like,
John
well,
Wick Jr.
no, he's like, he's cast as Johnny Utah, and they're like, well, you got to make a second Bill and Ted. He's like, what? No, I'm done with that shit.
I'm
So
an
in the second one,
FBI agent.
I am an FBI agent.
my favorite time traveling scene is definitely when they go to the Renaissance fair.
Yeah.
And my favorite, it's a tie for the Waterloo and the mall scene for my favorite out of time traveling scene, and my favorite character is Deacon. John.
Obviously the mall scene, and I just love Bill and Ted as a duo. I think they're great. Obviously we've got 3 movies out of them now, and Alex Winter, I wish he did more stuff. Like you said, that one film that he directed in the 90s, Freaked,
I love that
is
movie.
excellent. Everyone should seek that out. It is a gem of the early 90s.
I think my favorite scene is when Genghis Khan goes nuclear and starts killing the dummy.
For our second song, we're gonna go a little bit darker. Song from the B-side.
We're taking you to hell with Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Station! All right, we're here to talk about Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, the second film in the trilogy of Bill and Ted's. Just got done watching it. What'd you guys think?
I love it.
Yeah?
Yeah, of course.
When's the last time you watched this movie?
A very long time ago.
Yeah? It's a weird one, right?
It is, but it's Bill and Ted.
Yeah, it's so different than the first film, but
Yes.
that it's got its own unique charm to it that's different than the first one.
Yes.
So
It's very interesting.
It's completely different, off the wall,
yeah.
crazy, not even close to the first movie, but it still has the same characters and it's unique. I don't think I've ever seen a movie quite like that movie before.
Yeah, a lot of sequels just tread the same water, and so it's such a good. It's kind of refreshing to see something like this that goes in such a different direction, but still brings things back in that remind you of, okay, well, that's what the first one was all about. They're paying homage to things we saw in the first one. Do some good stuff with continuing some of the side characters, like the dads, you know, knowing what happened with each of their parents, and Missy, the hot young
mom.
high school student who marries the dads. There's
She
a great
married
twist.
both dads, and then she ended up marrying the crazy
The evil
future guy at the
overlord,
end.
if you watch all the way through the credits, yeah.
Music's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Primus is in it.
I forgot
Moore.
that Primus and
Megadeth?
Les Claypool's actually
in
in the film. Faith No More, wonderful Faith No More, gets a little cameo by Jim Martin, their guitarist.
Yep.
They're kind of plastered all over the movie, so that's really cool.
Station!
I think every song in the second film really fits and plays into the heavy metal rock and roll way more than the first film.
I agree.
And the movie starts off like sort of, whimsical, and then it gets very dark. There's Beetlejuice kind of parts to the movie.
Yeah, a lot of that comes from the director. This director didn't really go on to do a ton of other work and stuff, but it's interesting how I think they did a really creative job with the second film that you kind of didn't get in the first film. It was a little bit kind of standard, cut and dry. And this one just has such interesting camera work and editing and set direction, and just everything is just visually far more interesting than the first film.
It's not like a movie that would never ever do good in the mainstream. It's not like just a, hey, we'll watch it and just haha, it's so funny. It's more of a movie that you have to think about. It's more of a movie that you.
I don't know if you
call it
think
heady?
about.
I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it
You don't
intellectual.
really have to think that hard.
No, it's trippy. It's
trippy, yeah.
I guess you could say it makes you think in that way more than the first one.
And my favorite part about this movie is Death.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is my.
Death is the best.
What a wonderful addition to the cast.
Yes.
I believe they continue with him in the third film. William Sadler as Death
So
is
good.
such a standout in this movie. My favorite scene of maybe all, or the two Bill and Ted's we've seen, we still haven't seen part 3, is when they play games with death. That might be the funniest scene in all
Twister.
the movies.
It's the best of all the movies. Yes.
Yeah.
It always has that good-hearted feeling to the movies of Bill and
Yeah.
Ted.
It's still at
It makes you happy,
Yeah.
It ended well.
True. Yeah. The Bill
and you
and
can
Ted's.
watch it all the time.
Yeah, they make you kind of happy. They're, I don't know if uplifting is the right word. This movie is, just, it's very strange. I mean, they go to hell, they go to heaven, they meet aliens along
And
the way.
these things.
The aliens
station.
mutate from 2 into a blob to become this larger alien. I mean, there's all kinds of absurd stuff in this
Yeah,
movie.
it's kind of like
They're-
Gremlins a little bit.
the-
Yes.
The Fang action.
their own personal hells when they're in hell, the dream sequence kind of moments where they're running from the Easter Bunny or the
grandma.
the crazed grandma and the
And that was
military
just
school,
again, Brad?
It's so gross.
There's some good makeup in this movie. It actually, from a special effects standpoint, I think this movie,
Yeah, Satan.
They definitely
Yeah,
had a
Satan.
bigger budget, so they stepped up the effects. Satan is impressive. All of the hell scenes are
Yeah,
really
it was
impressive.
still kind of creepy to me.
It's got a lot of memorable moments, but I don't think the plot works as well as the first movie. Like I mentioned, I really like the first movie because it has that history lesson while you're watching it, and
John, I do not remember all the foam clothing.
yeah, they make some odd choices for costumes. The future, the future, everyone dresses in foam and wears
and
ski
felt.
boots everywhere.
Yeah,
I don't know.
ski boots. Yes, everybody's wearing ski boots. Fluffy
Yeah.
ski boots.
It's a weird looking depiction of the
And
future.
I do not remember that at all.
You stole Deacon's Easter basket.
So let's talk about George Carlin and how they wrote him out of this movie for some reason, not knowing they wouldn't get another opportunity to work with him on the final sequel. Like, they set him up at the beginning and he shows up at the end, but I don't know, it seemed like we needed I guess the payoff at the end where he's actually been the Pam Grier character wouldn't have worked if we had known that, but I feel like we needed a check-in with George Carlin throughout this
Exactly,
storyline.
because
The Pam Grier
he
character wasn't prominent enough.
No.
Who would
And
want to be
then
inside
to-
Pam Grier for 2 weeks?
Rufus should have been in more of the movie. He was part 1. He was a major part of that movie. And George Carlin, if you ever got a chance, to
I wonder
see
if
him,
Carlin.
Oh yeah, we
Maybe-
actually got to see George Carlin live in
Oh,
Vegas,
wow.
and he
Awesome.
was absolutely amazing. Love him to death.
I would say that in this movie, Bill was a better character than Ted. Ted was just kind of like going through the paces. Bill was.
Yeah, it was.
He was
it's
still
pretty
Bill.
apparent.
Same Bill.
I think Ben brought up, it seems like Keanu Reeves was already in his Johnny Utah mode where he wasn't, he was trying to take it a little too serious and didn't have the kind of goofy buffoonery that he was able to do in his earlier days. He was trying to get his career on a serious track, and it rubs off on Ted in this movie, almost to the point where the actor playing Ted's father in a certain scene where he has to mimic him does a way better job
Yes.
of playing Ted.
Okay.
And he
Dudes,
yes.
I mean fellow police officers, my son, Ted Theodore Logan, and his best friend, Phil S. Preskin Esquire, have been murdered by two evil robot versions of themselves.
Taking this information from their captain, who normally is very straight-laced, giving it to him straight, who just all of a sudden turned into this buffoon, and yeah, that scene is great.
What?
That is definitely one of the best of this movie. Yeah. And then the Missy character, the wife, she's still really funny. I think it's actually kind of interesting that they write her in with the whole seance scene. I mean, it's a small little. She's not as integral to what's going on like she was in the first film, but what little she needed to be there, it still kind of works. Yeah. And she ends up sending them to hell with a seance,
Which we
we
never realized. You never realized that she's the one that sends them to hell.
You think they just go to hell because they die, and that's enough to send them to hell. But no, really, they're sent to hell, which is kind of cool.
No, because they're good people.
Yeah.
And they were completely screwed, but it wasn't. They actually just said, "Oh my God, death!
Let's outsmart death.
Death, help us!" And they're like, and Death's like, "Okay, let's play the game." Otherwise, they would have been in hell forever.
Best 3 out of 5.
Damn right.
The best 4 out of 7 now. Yeah.
Damn right.
Battleship.
Awesome.
What's next?
Pinochle? I don't remember.
Clue.
Clue. Oh, the Clue one is great. Yeah.
My favorite.
Hand mastered with the candlestick.
Sorry, it's
Colonel
Professor
Mustard
Plum.
killed him in the study with the candy
I
stick.
said Plum.
The summary of that movie is it was very interesting. It was good. I'd rather watch part 1 because part 1's easier to watch. It's just such a happy movie. But part 2, if you haven't had a chance to see it, you got to see it. It's
Yeah,
interesting,
definitely.
crazy. It's not a bad movie. I'd rather watch that than 3/4 of the movies that come out these days. So
You let it breathe and realize what it is, and that it's a very different movie, and you can really enjoy it.
yeah, let's do it.
Let's go. Face the music.
Cheers.
Station!
Okay, for our third song, we're gonna slow it down. Play a ballad for the ladies.
It's time to be excellent for our princesses. It's time for Bill and Ted to face the music.
Alright, let's do this.
Most non-triumphant, dude. All 3 of these movies are, roughly an hour and a half.
Yes.
I mean, they're almost all
Almost
exactly an hour and a half. This one felt like it was 2.5 hours long.
It felt longer, yeah.
It just
for sure.
but at the same time, it felt like everything was so rushed because it was this ticking clock thing, and like it kept like calming down to show the future. People go, I don't think Bill and Ted are gonna make it, and then you'd have like 5 minutes without Bill and Ted in it, which is a long time in a movie to not have your main characters, and then they're just the phone booth drops and they're running, and it's like, oh wait, I forgot that they're on this crazy adventure because like everything else slowed down to a halt.
You know the worst part about this movie? They keep going to their future selves, and they're so depressing every time.
So disappointed.
Well, I think one thing we all agreed on by the end of this movie, we all liked it in different levels. None of us really loved it in any way. But it still had kind of the positive, upbeat feeling that you get from even the second film that has the darker side, still has that positive, upbeat Bill and Ted's feel.
This
and you
one
do get
has
that
a
in this
much
movie.
more positive vibe than the second one does.
Yeah.
And I think right now, in the state of the world and stuff like that, I didn't really like this movie as much as I wanted to, but I'm glad it exists because it does have that kind of almost confusing and convoluted but sort of beautiful ending with all that stuff going on. I know it was a little hokey, but like it kind of had that was the 1 second of the movie where I was kind of like, ooh, I kind of feel this a little bit. Like, we'll get into spoilers from here on out. I think the first scene in the movie was maybe the funniest scene. I'd probably have to watch it again, but like when they're explaining how Missy has married everyone in the family is really funny, and the fact that Missy ended up marrying deacon and he became his own father. Like, that was pretty great.
That was actually a perfect twisting of what we already knew was coming. Like, who's Missy gonna marry? I don't think any of us had expected it to be Deacon, the younger brother. So that was great.
My biggest problem with this movie is I wish, like, because you're thinking, like, the first one was time travel, the second one was heaven and hell, afterlife. Maybe this one will be alternate dimensions, and they played with that, but unfortunately it was just time travel again.
Yeah.
But it seemed like alternate dimensions because they're so drastically different from one another every time they jump and meet each other in another future. Like the prison guys, like that'd be great if that was an alternate timeline of Bill and Ted. Like an alternate reality.
You mentioned that. I think that would have been a smart idea to still have.
I thought that's where they were going to go.
Kind of the ideas you had from the first two films, but with something new to play with.
Yeah.
But they actually retread on the idea from the first film, which when they did it in this movie, for a second I got kind of excited. Like, okay, the daughters of Bill and Ted go seeking musicians to help their fathers learn to play the magical song. And I thought that was going to be an interesting little segment of this film where they travel through time and meet different musicians. The musicians they pick did not interest me personally. The segments they're in were not funny or put together very well. And by the end, once they have this collection of musicians that they're bringing back to the present to make this song, they don't do anything with those actors or those characters like they do in the first film. Those were some of the standout performances in the first film.
Yeah, they kind of grab people and they don't really have any screen time.
Yeah.
And like Jimi Hendrix has infamously been known as someone that barely talked.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay.
Nobody before this movie knew the drummer from 11,000 BC. Nobody knew the flute player from China.
Like you said, grab Neil Peart. That
I figured it. Great. I thought the farthest back they were going was Jimi Hendrix, and it would be kind of like go forward. Now I get that when they got to Hendrix, they had a reason they had to go back to influence him. But then I guess that was their whole. That's what it was. Was each one was the influence of the person they had taken. Mozart knew who the flutist was. That's why they took Mozart to the flutist. They took Louis Armstrong to Mozart. They took Louis Armstrong to Hendrix to get them to be part of the band.
I went right over my head.
Yeah, no, it was that.
Story focuses a lot on the daughters. I had heard that the daughters were pretty great. I wasn't really. I didn't like what's her name from Ready or Not.
Samara Weaving.
Yeah, she's just another one of those Aussies that looks so much like Margot Robbie. It's like, how can you possibly have a career? You're not as good of an actress as her, and you look too much like her. But the other one was the one I was really curious about because I kept seeing her in the trailers, and she looked great, and I'm like, oh, this is going to rock. And she was better of the two, but still disappointing a little bit. But I do like the touch where they refer to Bill and Ted as, they say dads at this. Dads!
But the thing I hated the most is the direction. It was the thing that I was somewhat excited when I heard that the Galaxy Quest director was signed on to do this movie. I thought, okay, he can do something interesting. He handled special effects amazing in Galaxy Quest in 1999, a comedy that didn't have any right to be as good as it was and look as good as it did and feel as believable as it was.
Some people say it's the best Star Trek movie ever made.
I could kind of agree with that. And this movie just falls so short on the
I can't
the
believe
direction.
It's that guy that directed it.
It feels like a direct-to-video thing in so many scenes. There's so much just people standing in front of obvious green screens.
Was Keanu Reeves trying in this movie more than he was in the second one?
God fucking awful. I could not stand watching him. He was the worst thing.
I think I just let nostalgia get the best of me. I just was so giddy with them. I was trying so hard for Keanu. Going, just give me a couple of those things from that first movie. And every time he'd go, yeah, I'd be like, yeah, I did it.
It's hard to go back to that just young
Not
at
for
heart.
Bill.
Well, the difference is
he's had so many things that happened in his life, and it's hard to like erase those things and go back to just being like carefree.
She's 100% right as far as why Alex Winter still falls right back into this role. It's the last thing he's been in, like pretty much. So like Bill is the same in all three movies. Ted is only Ted in the first movie. Yeah. Second movie, he's already Johnny Utah filming that movie at the same time.
I'm an FBI.
I am an FBI agent.
He's trying to act with Keanu Reeves, being directed by Catherine Bigelow. Then he's going back and putting on the Ted wig and going, ah!
There are a number of times where there is some really great makeup in this movie.
Oh, God, yeah.
There's some awesome bodysuits in the scene where they find themselves
Those
in jail.
are flawless, dude.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
And again, Alex Winter
excellent tattoo across his chest.
The tattoos.
Well, did you see even the veins on the arms?
Oh,
the
and
arms move, the
did
veins
you notice
move.
on the back? It was the double stallions.
The double stallions and
So so the
wild
best
stallions,
the best scenes in the movie, definitely. I think jail Bill and Ted.
That made me giggle.
Awesome.
And I love it when they're like British Bill and Ted. That's pretty funny.
But
because you know that they're full of shit in that scene. You're just waiting to see where it goes.
And everything. Right.
The
Even
Harris
for
versus-
Keanu, when he was playing like the British version of himself or whatever,
Our work is finished here.
he had to act. He had to play a character or something. He had to find some acting inside of himself to pull that off, and it worked a lot better.
Every
than so many
time
other
he
scenes
played
in
a
the film.
future version of himself, he was
He was
good.
a little better.
Yeah.
Let's
well,
talk about the princesses, the recasted princesses.
Once again, recasted to be maybe 20 years younger than
Bryan
Keanu or
Bryan
Alex.
thought it was Anna Faris.
Oh wow!
yeah.
Oh yeah, 'cause she kind of looked like her a little bit. Yeah.
It wasn't her?
No,
No.
it wasn't
But
there.
they were like set up in the beginning. I thought they could be utilized well because I think they did recast them with actresses that have careers or whatever are able to act possibly even better than Keanu Reeves at times.
They were
but
both better.
they're kind of written out of the movie early on.
Yeah,
Like,
this franchise hates those princesses.
yeah. At one point, they're having a conversation. I thought he was talking to his daughter, and it was like, oh no, that is his wife. Jesus.
Who would have been the better princesses at this point?
I think Jenna Jameson and Jasmine St. Clair.
Yes. What do you guys think of Rufus's daughter, the replacement?
She was
there?
pretty terrible.
Yeah.
I liked her
understand what
stems.
she was saying.
No, she was like talking like shit.
Yeah.
She had a mouthful of like fucking dry cat food. The way that the first one is when they're like, okay, we got our 2 guys. Dude, we got to get a bunch more guys and go back. And then what is it? It's a montage with a song, and you just see them have. It's a fun scene of them stopping through time. Like instead, we get like one scene and then whip a white transition, and then they go, and then they're we're at this place now, and we have to find this drummer. Okay, cool. And then the drummer's there, and they're like, come with us, and then cut another wipe. Oh, we have to find it's like just make that a montage and keep out the dialogue, so it's not just one boring, quiet scene after
back
another.
To direction. It just really.
Well, it
stood
also,
out.
I mean, the editor could have gone in and said, like,
Yeah.
these scenes are boring by themselves. Let's
Yeah.
fucking throw a track over this. This is Bill and Ted's after all. Let's throw a fucking rock track over this and, like, make a montage. Like, Jesus Christ, the first movie has 4 music montages in one movie.
They're pretty damn memorable.
My favorite song in the movie is the crazy Sonic Youth type thing they do at the very beginning of the movie with all the instruments at the wedding.
Yes.
That was making me
It was
laugh
very
out loud.
cool.
That was
I know.
funny.
Yeah, the wedding crashers beginning was the best of all of it.
It was.
That was the best scene.
I almost think the movie could have just not had just Bill and Ted throw a huge party in their neighborhood. There's no plot. It's just we see what they're doing. They made the song. They're billionaires and they throw a huge party and you fill it with celebrities and they just have fun.
I
And
think
at the end.
I think right now most movies are too complicated. They try to get too big, too weird, too crazy. I just want to see a good story about something smaller.
Yeah.
Where you have like
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
rooting
What's smaller
for-
than a party? A house party.
It didn't need to end where the whole world, is coming together. I mean, I know that's kind of the goal of, I guess, the Bill and Ted series.
Yeah, but it didn't need to be.
It didn't need to work on that level.
Like
I guess.
they
It
could have just
been
like
small.
maybe they could have just saved Rufus's daughter like from something, or it could have still been the same timeline, but just quickly saved something else.
I was not impressed with the hell scenes from the way they looked.
I was
though.
thinking that the whole time, like how they did so much more with less in the second one.
Seriously.
What's all the volcanoes? There's like 30 volcanoes.
And then
Is that
there's
hell?
flying things.
Yeah, just
The same dragon going up and down and volcano.
Again, keep things simple and on a smaller scale, and it'll work so much better than this overblown
A big,
CGI
huge
mess.
demon.
Dare I say there's iconic imagery in Bogus Journey. I know it seems weird to say it's
It's
Bill and
true.
Ted's Bogus Journey, but the hell scenes are beautiful to look at. I love those scenes. Like in a weird, gritty, low budget kind of way, but just it's all like that creative execution. Like that's what I love about that second one. It's just It's like all these weird minds making something really weird.
That movie's also extremely complicated and insane, but at least it's entertaining. Like, whoa, what the hell's going on? And it's still a good movie.
But it has a simple
Yeah, I
3-act structure, A, B to C, here's what we need to do. Where this one, you didn't really know what the daughters were going to do. How's that going to match up with what, like, Bill and Ted are doing? Are Bill and Ted, like, is it really going to be that easy to find the song? We just have to find ourselves who have the song. And it's just like, what?
They tried to throw way too much in because they knew it was the last one. And it just got muddled.
And at the end, what happened exactly? So
they saved the day. Cut to black.
No,
but it ended abruptly, dude.
Right.
I was not expecting that at all.
Like, what happened?
They should have just had a black screen said the end.
Yeah.
They're like, we spent too much time giving them this like post credits, like the rest of their lives becoming a band in the second one. So this one, black.
We're not sure what we want to do in a fourth, so we're just going to end it here.
I mean, it makes sense that one song wouldn't have saved the universe, but then
No, everything
it was
lived
supposed to be
happily
a
ever
song.
after the end.
So now it was more about everybody just loves instruments.
It made no sense.
So the whole movie, the whole trilogy was everybody gets an instrument. That's what it ended on.
Which makes no sense. What would that mean? Like, no, these people wouldn't know what to do with the instrument.
But
they
you
wouldn't
get one.
understand why it was given to them. They wouldn't understand the person handing
Here
it
you
to
go.
them.
You're like, oh shit.
I think Bill and Ted are a classic comedy duo that deserve to be remembered as, you know, up there with some of the other ones that have come through cinema. But this third film didn't need to exist. We thought it did. I had hoped there was a reason for this to really be part of a trilogy, but I kind of now wish we just had 2 films in this series.
I wasn't the biggest like Bill and Ted's person growing up. When I was a kid, everything was about horror. I loved horror movies. So these movies were kind of like stupid to me. Like as I got a little bit older, and that's probably why I like the second one more, because I was a little bit older when it came out, and it was just spoke more my language because it was weird and dark. Rewatching the first and second one gave me like a little bit of a new love for the first one, I think, just because it's so fucking charming and that's really the only time you see the two. When you think Bill and Ted, you usually think that first movie the way they act.
Those guys are one of my favorite favorite dynamic duos. Growing up, I love this movie. These guys, I really do. I mean, they're great. This movie though was not good. It was just boring, weird, kind of all over the place. Watching part 1 and part 2 again made me kind of fall in love with the characters again. I hadn't seen the movies in 20 years. I would really say that everybody should see Bill and Ted's 1, and everybody should see part 2. Just, it's really good. Watch it with your kids. PG movies, and they're really funny.
But these are old PG movies.
Yes,
so they say
they're allowed to have a little bit of cussing.
They say once in part 1,
yeah,
and twice in part 2. Be
excellent to each other.
Party on, dudes!
Thank you for joining us for Bill and Ted's Band Practice Extravaganza.
Most triumphant. Thanks for watching. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Look for us under Cinema Gulp.
Most non-triumphant.